Hello.
Hi,
How are
welcome
you?
everyone. So we have our Secretary of State, Jena Griswold on, and we also have Senator Mike Foote. And let's get started. So thank you all for being here tonight. We're going to talk about the power of the vote. And my name is Sally Boccella, and I'm running for Senate District 23. That encompasses parts of Larimer and Weld counties and all of Broomfield County. So my first guest is our Secretary of State, Jena Griswold. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about the power of the vote and about our election process. And then also, some of the great things that you've been working on because you've been really busy.
It has been busy, Sally, but Colorado, we're really lucky. Number one, not only because we have a great senator like Senator Foote and everybody in the legislature that put us in a really good position, but number two, because the Colorado election model works so well. In Colorado, you just register to vote at govotecolorado.gov. And then it's so easy. You're sent a ballot straight to your home. And you can vote from home. You don't even have to put on a suit jacket to do it. You can do it even in your pajamas. And then you can return your ballot by mail at a drop box or even at an in-person voting center. And of course, you could always vote in person also. And our election system has been really put to the test this year. And I am just so proud that in our statewide primary, in the middle of the pandemic, we set a record turnout, which just shows that the Colorado election model works. It works for all voters, and there's a couple things that we've changed in the last couple of years. So the first one was adding access, and this is something that I worked hand in hand with Senator Foote on. We've added a lot more voting centers, and then increased drop boxes by 49% since I was or been Secretary of State. So we'll have about 330 voting centers and over 368 drop boxes across the state of Colorado. So that's pretty exciting. I also worked with Senator Foote to make sure that we were expanding access for younger people. We're guaranteeing a polling location or drop box in every public university. And we also enabled 17-year-olds to participate in the primaries if they'd be 18 by the general. And then we also, in that key piece of legislation in 2019, made sure that Native Americans living on tribal lands had access. So we had Senator Foote. How did we know to add all that access? It turned out to be a really good idea for a pandemic.
You were pressing it, Madam Secretary. It's amazing.
Forward thinking, Senator Foote. So Sally, overall, we're really confident. I've rolled out a couple innovations this year specifically to share with everybody. First, statewide ballot tracks. You can literally sign up to see when your ballot is sent to you. And then after you vote it, you can see when it's received by the county clerk and processed or accepted. This is the first time we'll have that statewide. Sign up at govotecolorado.gov. I also just announced this week a new technology to help fix any signature discrepancies. I'm funding Sunday voting, the Sunday before Election Day. If county clerks want to open, we're taking care of that. We're sending PPE across the state. Every county clerk, elections official, poll watcher will have access to the PPE they need. And then I issued a series of rules to make sure that in-person voting is as safe as possible. And the last thing I would say, the last thing to really think about is make sure you're registered to vote. You can do that all the way up until Election Day at 7 p.m. Just be in line by 7 p.m. on Election Day. You can register and cast a ballot. But if you want a ballot mailed to you, which is a lot more convenient, just register now. govotecolorado.gov. And then two other things. I would say make a plan to vote. Ballots are going to start going out tomorrow, all the way through the 16th. And you should make a plan now. How are you going to return it? How are you going to vote those different issues and initiatives and the candidates? Make a plan now. For me, I really suggest Coloradans vote their mail ballot. We are in the middle of a pandemic. It's the best way to vote. It's so easy. And it's really convenient. You can just put it in your post box right outside or drop it at a drop box. So that's the overview of elections. And I think it's, just going to be a fantastic election like usual.
That is amazing. I can't believe all of we're so innovative here. Colorado really is leading the way in the election process. So thank you so much for all the work that you've been doing. God, it is I mean, really, you are preventing suppression of, voter suppression. You are making it, people feel safe in every single way, and it's secure, right? We don't have to worry about anyone, leaning over our shoulders watching us vote, right? And I love the ballot tracks. I've been using that since I registered here in Colorado, and I am so happy that you just made that, easy for everyone. Yeah, right across the board.
So we had, and Senator Foote also, I think you've had access to it in the county that you live, but there were 12 counties that use ballot track system that we just rolled out statewide. And then Denver actually uses a different system. So we've rolled it out statewide, so everybody has access to it. It's so easy to sign up. You can then decide how you want to get alerts. So do you want to be emailed? You can also be sign up to get a call if you want to call on where your ballot is, or get text messages.
You don't have to sign up right now, though, correct?
What's that?
So right now, though, because we're in the pandemic, it's automatic. Everyone is basically enrolled in the ballot tracks, correct?
So if you had information on your file that would allow us to enroll, you were auto-enrolled. But a lot of Coloradans don't have an email on their voter registration file or other information. So it's a possibility. If you had the info, you'll be auto-enrolled. But you also can still go choose your preferences. But believe it or not, I did not have an email in my voter file. So I actually had to go sign up. And I just think it's really neat, especially just being able to choose the way you want to be communicated with. As the millennial in the room, I prefer text messages. So I was able to just sign up for text messages, and we'll get those as soon as the wonderful clerk, my county clerk, Molly Fitzpatrick, sends out those ballots.
Gosh, thank you so much for mentioning that, because I actually thought that that was just an automatic thing because of the pandemic. So now I'll have to make sure that I mention that they have. Absolutely. They should go and they should check into the ballot tracks to make sure that they're able to have that.
Absolutely.
So okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Is there anything else is there anyone on here that would like to ask our Secretary of State a question?
No questions. I think you probably covered it before I came, Sally. So thank you for having me on. Always great to see you, Senator Foote. Just wish everybody to be safe, make a plan to vote, and get your voice heard. Make your voice heard this election. See you all later.
Thank you so much for being here. And
thank you.
I look forward to actually seeing you in person again.
I know. I haven't seen you for a long time.
I know.
But second best, Zoom.
That's right.
I was going to say I'm wearing the same jacket as the jacket in that picture, but I don't think I am. So, okay, guys, you have a good one.
Thank you so much.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you. Bye. Well, that was a fantastic overview of our election process. If you have any questions, please contact either my campaign at sallyforcolorado.com, or you can contact your county clerk's office. Senator Foote, thank you so much for being here. You are the expert in Proposition 113.
Well, I like to think I am, but every once in a while I still get a question that stumps me a little bit about it, and maybe that'll happen tonight. So we'll see. It's kind of stump your senator type of situation here. Let's see if we can do that. Sally, thanks a lot for having me on to talk about the national popular vote. Just for everyone's reference, I have a PowerPoint slide deck, which generally can take me quite a while to get through, or pretty abbreviated. And I'm just going to go through the abbreviated version here tonight and open up for questions. So just to give an idea of what's going on with Proposition 113, the national popular vote. So first of all, I always like to show this legislator action shot. Maybe Sally will herself be, hopefully she'll be in this position next year, and at the well of the Senate arguing on behalf of good bills. And that's what happened here back in 2019 when I was one of the legislators that passed the National Popular Vote Bill. And I ran the bill because I think the national popular vote is really the single most effective way to reform our democracy and our republic at the state level. It affects how we elect our president, the most important and powerful position in the entire country. And frankly, I don't know about you all, but my opinion is we can use some improvement there. The system isn't working so great at this point in time, and we can definitely do better. And that's exactly what the National Popular Vote would do. And I'll go over a little bit of specifics, nuts and bolts about how it works, and then the 3 areas where the National Popular Vote improves the current way that we elect our president. So first with the nuts and bolts, just very quickly, what it does is it uses our power under Article 2, Section 1 of the United States Constitution, which gives the states exclusive authority to assign and allocate their presidential electors in the way that they find to be appropriate. So this has changed in states for a long time, or many times over the course of our history. Right now, 48 states total have what's called a winner-take-all system, which is what Colorado has. The winner-take-all system means whichever candidate gets the most votes in that state, even if it's a margin of just 1, ends up getting all of those states' electoral college votes. So for example, in 2016, Hillary Clinton won the majority of votes in Colorado, so she got all 9 of Colorado's electoral votes. Now what that does is it leaves out a lot of people that voted for president, and it means their votes don't actually matter for anything. So millions of Americans who vote for a different candidate than the majority of their state voted for end up getting left out of the presidential election process. The National Popular Vote right now has 15 states plus Washington, D.C. that have signed on. Colorado is one of those 15. Proposition 113 is asking voters to affirm or approve that decision. So if you believe in the National Popular Vote, if you like it, you should be a yes on Proposition 113. And I'll show you the ballot language here towards the end in just a minute. It only goes into effect when enough states sign on that represent a majority of electors. So it's not happening this year, but it could happen as early as 2024 because we're 2/3 of the way there. So first of all, under a National Popular Vote, unlike the current system, every single voter would matter. One person would truly equal 1 vote, no matter where that voter lives, no matter what the election is. So if somebody's voting for a Democrat in a red state, or if someone's voting for a Republican in a blue state, their vote actually counts towards the grand total. Their vote matters, unlike the current system. Secondly, under a National Popular Vote, presidential candidates would actually campaign throughout the entire country, including in Colorado, which they're skipping over now because we're not a swing state. So right now, the presidential candidates only focus on a certain number of states, maybe 6 to 8 swing states. We all know what a map of the United States looks like, but this is what a map of the United States looks like to presidential candidates. This is what they care about. They care about swing states or so-called battleground states, states where it's competitive. In red states or blue states, like Colorado is now, it's not competitive. So the presidential campaigns are not coming here. They're not advertising here, and they don't really have significant operations here. They're focusing on just those states with maybe Nevada and Ohio and Georgia tossed in there, but that's it. 40+ states are being ignored under the current system. The National Popular Vote would change that because the entire country becomes a swing country instead of just a few swing states. Here's what we have with presidential and vice presidential campaign visits up until today, actually. It's a total of 78 visits throughout the entire country for president and vice presidential candidates, and you can see Colorado is among many states that has not received a presidential campaign visit. That's because we are not a swing state anymore. We used to be, but we're not anymore. And so therefore, we're not receiving the kind of attention that the other states are. I mean, you can see here Pennsylvania, of course, is a state where it's probably going to be very close. Florida, Wisconsin, Michigan, et cetera, even Arizona, receive those kinds of visits and attention. But the presidential campaigns under a National Popular Vote would not just be able to focus on those few swing states. They would have to focus on voters across the country. And that's exactly how it should be because the president represents the entire country. Third, under a National Popular Vote, the presidential candidate that earns the most votes nationwide would actually win the election, without exception. Under our current system, the number 2 candidate can win. And we've certainly seen that in 2016. We saw it in 2000. It happened with 3 presidents prior to that in the 1800s. And it almost happened in 2004, as a matter of fact. John Kerry, if he just would have flipped 60,000 votes in Ohio, he would have won despite losing the popular vote by 3 million that year. And it's projected that it could be just as close this year under the Electoral College and going forward because there's just not that many swing states like there used to be. So under a National Popular Vote, this scenario is just impossible because the presidential electors from each member state votes for the candidate that actually wins the most votes, the most popular votes throughout the entire country. So the bottom line is the most votes wins, period. There's always a good time to talk about the social and racial justice implications of policies, and this is no exception. I think we know from our high school civics class that the Electoral College was part of the Three-Fifths Compromise that counted slaves as 3/5 of a person. And of course, that was something that benefited the South disproportionately. That was abolished back after the Civil War, but still voter suppression ensued and continues to this day, particularly in the South. So white Southerners have disproportionate power in Congress as well as in the Electoral College and a say in how we elect our president. The national popular vote would take away some of the sting of that voter suppression because it wouldn't matter nearly as much. It's still a bad thing, but it wouldn't matter like it does now, where if you suppress 10,000 votes in Michigan, for example, that can swing the entire race. That can make a huge difference in who becomes our president for 4 years. If you suppress 10,000 votes in Michigan under a national popular vote where the margin is 2 million, it's not going to matter for the outcome. It's still a terrible process and it matters locally, but at least for the presidency, it won't make that kind of a difference. Now, regarding swing states versus non-swing states, you'll see down at the bottom, there's a huge percentage of our communities of color that live in flyover states or non-swing states now. 69% of African-American voters live in non-swing states, as do 76% of Latinx voters. 82% of Asian American voters live in flyover states. So the practical effect of that is their communities are not getting any attention from the presidential candidates because they live in red states or blue states, so it doesn't really matter. Under a national popular vote, every voter would matter and every community would matter. And this would be especially welcome, I'm sure, in those long ignored and disenfranchised communities of color. So we have lots of endorsements from nonpartisan organizations like the League of Women Voters. They've endorsed the national popular vote since 2006 when it was first introduced in its first state. We're very proud of their support, as well as the support of a number of other nonpartisan good governance types of organizations that are listed here. And I just want to run through a couple of newspaper endorsements that we just received because they have written some nice things about the national popular vote. This first one comes from the Grand Junction Sentinel on the Western Slope. They have endorsed the national popular vote. This quote comes from the Denver Post, where they say it's a matter of preserving the sanctity of our votes across the nation. The third one comes from the Durango Herald, where they're also encouraging a yes on Proposition 113. And finally, going to the Aurora Sentinel, where they take on some arguments against the national popular vote and why they really don't hold any water, which I can go into during the Q&A session if you'd really like to. So this brings us to the matter at hand, which is the ballot measure that you're about to see in front of you when you get your ballots next week. If you agree that one person should equal one vote, if you think that the most votes should actually win, and if you think presidential candidates should campaign across the country and pay attention to all Americans and all Coloradans, you should be a yes on Proposition 113. It's asking voters to approve what we passed and the governor signed in 2019. And, clearly I'm approving of it. I think it's a good thing. And I hope my explanation has helped everyone else come on board as well. So that's the end of my abbreviated presentation, but as I said before, I'm happy to open up for discussion or take any questions from folks.
Thank you so much. That was excellent. You really made it, you articulated and very succinctly how important it is that we have one person, one vote, right? And how the current system is not doing that. So it's not really speaking for all Americans, and it's not right when our elected officials ignore us, right?
Yeah, and just to kind of maybe piggyback on Secretary Griswold's presentation about voter participation. What we see in these swing states versus non-swing states is generally a much higher voter participation in swing states because they know that their vote matters. Their vote is being courted, it's being sought. And so the participation is much higher generally in swing states. In non-swing states like Texas, last time the participation was 47% of all Texans, less than 1 in 2. In Hawaii, it was 38%. So that's ridiculous. People need to participate more, and having their vote actually count for president will go a long way in encouraging people to participate, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think once they realize that their vote matters in the presidential race, then they will consider voting down the ballot, right?
Yeah, that's right. I hope so.
Voter apathy is it weakens our democracy. So I agree with you. I think this is the first step into closing that gap.
Great.
Let me see if there's any questions from our guests. Does anyone like to ask Senator Foote any questions in regards to the national popular vote? You can put it in the chat. Becky, are you checking Facebook to see if there's anyone on Facebook that would like to ask a question or have a comment?
No questions on Facebook yet.
Okay, great. Well, you were just such a great presenter. I mean,
I guess so. All right, well, we can count on several yes votes there at this point, so that's great.
Yeah. But you know, I would like you to talk about the arguments against it and how they're weak. I think it's important.
Sure. Well, you know, actually, if you go to the nationalpopularvote.com website, you'll see that there's been probably about 200 arguments used against the national popular vote since it was first introduced in 2006. I certainly do not want to go through all of those, and neither do you. But I'll mention there's kind of a top two, you know, the greatest hits. One is the California boogeyman. You hear opponents talk about California, and sometimes they throw in New York. Kind of, you know, code for the coastal elites are going to rule us. And so what you'll hear is that if we do a national popular vote, California will determine who becomes president, or California, New York, or sometimes they throw in Illinois, you know, all blue states with big cities. And that's just not the case. I mean, it's simple math will show you. California, for example, it is a bigger state than us. They have more people. They have more electors as well. The national popular vote doesn't change that. It doesn't make it any worse, but it doesn't change it. And so they're still going to have more people than us under a national popular vote, but they still have 12% of the population. And 12% is a heck of a lot less than what you need to actually win the presidency. And again, that's just assuming that every single Californian votes for the same candidate, which we know is not ever going to happen. You know, California does vote blue, but there's about 4.5 million registered Republicans also in California. And so it's not like 100% of the Californians are suddenly going to vote for the Democrat. Just like 100% of the people in my district don't vote for me. I mean, there's no way. And so that's the one of those, you know, that I was just in a candidate forum earlier today on the Aaron Harbor show, and I was in my mind counting the number of times that the opponents said the word California, and I lost count after a dozen. So, you know, they were getting up to 15 or 20 times that they mentioned it, and clearly that's part of their messaging is to talk about California and apparently how it would dominate presidential elections. But look, you know, if California could determine who would actually win elections under the current system or the national popular vote, then, you know, I'd like to introduce you to President Gore or President Kerry or President Hillary Clinton. That's just not how it works, and that's not how it would work under that system as well. The other thing that we hear about is the constitutional issue. I won't go over in great detail about that other than to say that some opponents are kind of taking it's more kind of a cop-out way. They say, oh, well, you know, we totally believe in one person, one vote. Certainly we want to make sure everyone's vote counts, but you need to do it through a constitutional amendment instead. And that's what we've seen some opponents say, and it's just not necessary. Certainly a constitutional amendment is one way that you can do something like this, but there's many more ways to pass a law. And under Article 2, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution, as I mentioned earlier, it gives states this authority. So we're just using the Constitution, just not the amendment process of the Constitution, but a different part of it. So a constitutional amendment has been tried. The last real serious effort was 1969, where the president was on board, bipartisan senators and representatives were on board, chambers of commerce and unions were on board with doing a national popular vote, but southern states filibustered it in the U.S. Senate, so it didn't go anywhere. A constitutional amendment would require 2/3 of the Congress plus 3/4 of the states to pass. You know, the Equal Rights Amendment has been pending since 1972, and it still hasn't passed the necessary steps. And so I don't think we should wait that long to change the way we elect our president. I think that we should do it under a different set of constitutional authority. So those are the top two. Sometimes we hear a little bit about how California is trying to steal Colorado's water, and this is a big plot by Californians to do that. You know, you laugh at it a little bit, but that's something that they take pretty seriously on the Western Slope in particular. there's no basis for that. In fact, the president himself or herself has no authority under the Constitution for interstate water compacts anyway. It has to be approved by all the states plus Congress and not the president. So that's probably the top three that we're hearing right now.
Wow, thank you. Elizabeth, you have a question for the senator?
Yes, what other states have joined the compact?
Yeah, good question. So there's been 15 states in Washington, D.C., so I probably won't remember all the states off the top of my head, but they range from small states like Delaware and Vermont to large states like Illinois, California, New York, and medium states like Colorado, Oregon joined last year, New Mexico joined last year, and there's a number of others. Massachusetts is one. So like I said, I'm not going to remember them all, but it's 15 states plus DC that equals 196 electoral votes, and you need 270 for it to go into effect. So it's 2/3 of the way there.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Great question. Anyone else have a question for the senator? Wow, okay. Well, I think that was an amazing presentation. I mean, I know that when this first came up, you know, a lot of people were confused by it because, you know, when they talk about the Electoral College and they talk about the National Popular Vote, and then you have all these mixed arguments and some of them are misinformed. But I think your presentation really hits on the important aspects of this, and it's very easy to understand. So I appreciate that. And I'm sure a lot of people out there who are watching appreciate that as well. So when they get their ballot, they will be able to vote yes on 113 and know why they're voting yes, right? So thank you so much for spending your evening with me and us talking about this important ballot measure. And I also wanted to say too that your ballot should be arriving, they go out with the 9th of October, so they should be arriving in your mailboxes around the 13th or 14th. You should have your blue books already. Please start at the bottom of your ballot and work your way up. There's so much about 2020 that has you know, given us reasons to lose hope and feel disenchanted with not you know, even with elections, but just with a lot of things, right? And I think that when we look at the ballot and we look at a lot of things that are on the ballot this year, it gives us hope. So please look at the blue book. You know, it's your voice, your vote. Please, please cast your vote and do it early. And, you know, drop it off at your nearest drop box, or I think that's the best way that's what I'm doing. That's my plan. I'm going to get my ballot and I'm going to fill it out completely, and I'm going to drop it in my nearest drop box, and then I'm done. And I just wanted to also put this out there too, that once you vote, you will not receive any more texts or phone calls. So that's another plus. Okay, Senator Foote, did you want to close tonight?
Yes, well, thank you, Sally. I really appreciate being able to be on here, and frankly, I appreciate the fact that you're running, and you're running an excellent campaign in your district. I think it's so important to have good candidates like yourself to step up. I know from experience that it's not easy to do that. You know, it's hard on family life and other things that you might want to do, and employment. But it is it's essential that good candidates step up and good candidates ultimately win and make a big difference down at the state Senate. And I know that's what you'll do. And so I'm really happy to support your campaign. And I certainly hope that the folks that are out there will do the same thing. So the district, you know, Senate District 23 has not necessarily been in play in the past. And Sally, I know you, and plus some nice fortune of some demographic changes have changed that. And I think it's important for people to recognize that this is a seat that is in play. And I would love to see Sally represent the Senate District 23 down at the state Senate, because I think she'd be an effective advocate for the district, and also someone that would actually take into consideration the entire district, listen to everybody in the district, and really work hard to do what a state senator should do, which is represent everybody in the district and be straightforward about your votes and your thinking, but also first and foremost, be willing to listen, have town halls and be transparent. And I'll just say very briefly that there's been times that I've had interactions with Sally's opponent. I was going to say worked with, but that's not really the case because we've typically not worked with each other. It's been against each other. And I can just tell you that I don't think that she would be representing the district, Sally's opponent would be representing the district nearly the same way. In fact, I think it'd be the opposite way. And I don't think that's good for anybody, particularly those in the Senate district. So I have supported Sally. I went on the website a couple of days ago and made a contribution, another contribution. And I would ask you to do the same because we're down at crunch time now, and particularly now that door knocking is not nearly as of an option. You know, I know it's happening and there's lit drops and things, but it's just not nearly as good of an option. It really comes down to social media communication, mail communication, perhaps TV communication, whatever you can do in order to make sure to get the word out about the candidacy. So please do contribute and help Sally make sure that there's a true representative, a true senator from Senate District 23. So thanks, Sally, and you know, I'm happy to add anything else that you want, but that's my with it.
Thank you so much. That was, I mean, so I'm honored to have your support. And like you said, I mean, this district has changed. And, you know, to represent such a diverse community and, you know, selected group of people that think differently, you need to have a senator that that has, through life experience, will listen and meet people where they are and welcomes different perspectives to the table. Because I truly believe that we cannot create innovative policy or problem solve in a vacuum. So, so I welcome those perspectives, and I hope that you will support me with your vote and a contribution or volunteer work. But in the end, I look to represent you and everyone in the district to the best of my ability. So I thank you for that honor and that opportunity. So thanks so much. Thank you so much, Senator Foote, for a brilliant presentation and your kind words and your support. So I look forward to working with you at the Capitol and you know, lifting up all Coloradans, right? That's what we're here to do. So thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us tonight. If you'd like to learn more about me, please visit my website at sallyforcolorado.com. You can also contact me through the website and then also make a contribution and join our team. So thanks so much. Have a great night, everyone.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.